Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the world famous podcast Beating the Press. Two hosts, myself Ty, and obviously we've got Chris with us as well. Today we thought we'd wear different tops. No, it's a joke.
No, we didn't plan this, did we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Always calling me out. Every week he's calling me out for not wearing mine.
It was my fault today. I've got my Christmas jumper on because we've got some sort of Christmas jumper work thing on.
Can we see it?
You can, yeah. Well, I've had it on, so there we go. Is that alright?
Oh, that's beautiful.
I don't know what everyone else does for Christmas jumpers, but I tend to make sure I've got the same one from last year and it still fits. And I don't even know if this is mine or I've nicked it off someone last year. I don't know. Normally for our footy do, we'd have a sort of Christmas jumper night, and obviously we're not having any of that this year or for the next few months anyway. So I thought I'd wear it for the podcast, and I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't find the white one, so I've got this. But yours looks really good, and I like your backdrop as well. It fits in nicely, matches up nicely with the Beating the Press logo. I love that.
Yeah, we're doing a bit of branding, you know what I mean? I'd like to say it's my setup, but obviously it's the missus.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I'm sure you all want to know what we're going to talk about today. That's why you're listening. It's not Christmas jumpers and wearing matching tops. Next time we will be looking to wear matching tops, and we'll give each other a buzz and make sure they're washed and nice. So today we're going to talk about the Champions League. Obviously the group stages are finished. We thought we'd have a little review, see how teams have done. Some have done well, some have done quite so well. Who we think is going to end up winning it, who we think is going to get really close. And just the unseeded teams. There are some really strong teams that have finished second, so you always go with the mantra of finish top of your group stage, so you get an easier draw. That might not be the case this year.
No, not at all. Like the strength of the teams, like you say, we've got a list up here. The likes of Atalanta, who obviously performed well against Liverpool. One of the few teams to actually beat Liverpool at Anfield. Yeah. Atletico, no one wants them. Barcelona, Lazio, Leipzig, Porto, Sevilla.
I think the three teams you mentioned, the ones at the bottom, the Mönchengladbach, Porto, Sevilla, maybe Lazio. They're the four you even Sevilla you wouldn't want. I mean, Mönchengladbach, Porto, and Lazio. They're probably the three you could. It's just a tough, you don't want Barcelona, Atletico Madrid. They're the two that instantly stand out, and obviously Leipzig, I've shown they can beat some big teams in Europe as well.
Yeah, I was watching the Real Madrid match the other night, and I was quite disappointed at Mönchengladbach. I don't know whether you watched that.
I caught the back end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, although it was pretty much like a Tony Cruz masterclass, like rolling back the years. I don't think that they had to do much to win that game. Mönchengladbach were very passive, considering what was on the line. But it was great to see the scenes at the end, where they're all crowding around and watching the Inter game and watching Alexis Sanchez smash. Well, I think it looked like he was about to score, and then Lukaku just started. Like, what am I meant to do?
I actually watched the last 20 minutes of the Inter game, because Real Madrid were 2-0 on that. Because you obviously group stage, you want to watch the game that's got something riding on it, and as it ended up, it was Inter against Shakhtar, because Real Madrid had effectively beaten Mönchengladbach. Whoever won that game was going to qualify, and it ended 0-0. Can't make it.
But I mean, the amount of goals that they shared between each other in the qualifying stage so far was ridiculous, and for it to end 0-0 was wow.
Do you know that Inter game as well? It was. I found it really weird and strange. So Inter, Shakhtar. Now Shakhtar were drawing and knowing full well that's a spot for them in Europa League. But Inter were just the only team that was attacking. The Shakhtar was so. They were looking to hold on for a point to qualify for Europa League, and I just didn't get that mentality. I'm like, go for the fucking Champions League spot. You know what I mean? Why try and stay for Europa League? And it was all into Shakhtar were playing on the break, and I just was like,
that was what I was just about to ask you. I'm thinking back now. Could Shakhtar have qualified for the next stage of the Champions League? Yeah, because
it was a straight shootout.
They were very passive, and I don't know whether they just think, right, we're kind of almost guaranteed to go far in the Europa League.
Yeah.
We're pretty much going to get knocked out, but it's a lot of money, isn't it? Something like maybe 12 to 20 million for the next round.
It's obviously more prestigious as well. But yeah, that was the game that sort of stood out, and I just thought, wow. I mean, it just threw everything at it, but just couldn't get that moment.
Just to touch on Real Madrid, obviously they came through. Was a testing group for them in the end. I think as soon as I saw that Sergio Ramos was back, that's when you kind of get the idea that they're going to be okay. Guy's a legend for them, isn't he? He just kind of keeps them on an even keel, make sure that they don't give no sloppy goals away. What do you think about their chances this year?
I mean, I don't think they're gonna. I mean, they'll go far because it's Real Madrid. But I just think the makeup of their team isn't as it was. You don't see the team and you think, wow, I'm going to shit myself out. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I saw they had Vasquez playing at right back. I'm like, he's a converted winger. You know what I mean? I don't know if Carvajal, where he is with his fitness, and if he's back in the midfield again. It seems very. They're great in possession. It's just out of possession with Real Madrid. It's the same team. I mean, Benzema's having to score goals, and they got Rodrigo and Vinicius who are like okay. They're all right in moments. It's not like they're they're up and coming. They're one of those players that you talk about potential, but you've got to sort of really realise that potential because you're at Real Madrid and do something with it. I mean, the performance. I mean, obviously, the performance in the group stages. I think sometimes it's a case of getting through, but it's been like that for a while. With them, and Zidane's obviously had a bit of pressure for a few games, and I think obviously if he didn't qualify, he'd have been sacked regardless of how many Champions Leagues you've won. I mean, Shakhtar beat him home and away, which is just bonkers, and they didn't even qualify. But yeah,
I don't suppose it helps with Madrid playing like their games at is it their training complex?
Yeah, it's a training ground. But I mean, it's like, what's the point getting the Bernabeu? Wasting all that electricity if you can't have any fans watching. The pitch size is the same, isn't it? And the training ground seems alright as well. It's not. It's better than most people's grounds.
It's not a bad training ground. Yeah, it's not a bad training ground at all.
Yeah. So yeah, just as we've spoke about, we said we'd touch on disappointments and teams that we feel have massively underperformed. I'm not going to be surprised. I mean, like I said, we don't normally talk about who. We have a subject we're going to talk about on the podcast, but we don't actually discuss what we're going to talk about, so we just feel it's always better to just come out naturally. So I'm going to ask you this question. I'll be shocked if you don't have the same answer as me. Biggest disappointment of the group stages?
Well, as an English fan, obviously the three teams, Liverpool, Man City and Chelsea, just blitzed their groups, carefree early stages, and that being said, it has to be United. Unfortunately, like with us being Liverpool fans, we often come across as anything but United, everything against United. But when it comes to these early stages in the group, it's always best for our country and our Premier League for obviously all four to go through. Helps us, in the future. With that being said, I don't want Man United to win it, but I like them to go through. And after the start that they had, everyone would have expected that they went through. They obviously had a difficult fixture in PSG, where they come away with a win, absolutely annihilate Leipzig, and the turning point, obviously, Istanbul, where just absolutely criminal defending. Whether that's obviously the game that lost them it, and then I'd say a couple of bad decisions by Solskjaer leading up to ultimately their exit, and it's just criminal. The way that they continually let teams have a head start, and ultimately that's what's done them the other night.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm glad you've said Man United, but it's the same as me. Obviously, no surprise, and I'd have been shocked if you picked anyone else. Just a few things. I mean, obviously you've mentioned that. You had a great start, you beat Leipzig, PSG, and then it's just gone tits up. That you're going to go back to the Istanbul game, but it's a bigger issue than that. At Istanbul, everyone can have an off game. Literally any team in the world can have an off game and get beat by anyone. That's okay. The issue there is, I mean, they've lost 3 games. Do you know what I mean? And that is it. You're not going to expect to go through your Champions League stage by losing 3 games. And then on top of that, to compound that is, United seem to be at the moment I saw it branded about comeback kings, and I'm like, you're not. That's not a sustainable way to play football. No manager in the world goes, right, we'll go 3 goals down or 2 goals down, and then I want you guys to start playing. It just isn't right. There's obviously an issue there in terms of how they're preparing the team and how they're setting up the team and how the organisation is from the first sort of 20 minutes, because they seem to be behind all the time and then chasing the game. And the thing is, when they do chase the game, it's not like the old. I mean, we're obviously a bit older and watched Man United in the 90s and the way they played, with real aggression and width, and 4-4-2 when you got 2 wingers and 2 centre forwards. There's no idea, there's no philosophy, there's no. I don't know how Man United play. So the way they get out is just by individual brilliance. And again, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're totally right, and it's not a case of them hammering teams, backs against the walls jobs. It's not like it was. In reality, it's them getting lucky with a lot of decisions recently. Like I thought the other night, they got given a soft penalty.
Oh yeah, how he's come to that, yeah.
Yeah, a goal which, if you look at the Liverpool Mane handball yesterday, or on Wednesday night, where he's headed it onto, I believe it might have been his shoulder. You could barely see why Mane's was not given, and then obviously Man United doesn't get given. But again, VAR, we won't go into that. Yeah. So quite recently, Man United have had a bit of a rub of the green, and it's kind of got them out of situations. And on this occasion, it's not spared them.
Yeah, I just felt. I mean, the formation as well. He changed from a 5 to a 4. Play. You get no consistency. You obviously played football for a long time at a decent level as well, and when you're playing in a team and it's the same setup, who's on your left, who's on your right, who's in front of you, who's behind you. You get that, build that relationship, so your distances as well. When you're playing a back 5 or a back 4, the distances are completely different. Naturally, you've got 5 across the width of the pitch. Distances are going to be smaller. You play 4, they're going to be big. And then I thought Wan-Bissaka got isolated, and Nagelsmann did brilliant, because he's obviously known there's technical deficiencies within his performances and the way he plays. And if you watch the goal that they scored, the first one, his body shape's horrendous. He's playing in a back 5 and is so narrow, which just doesn't make sense. It's like, why are you over covering in a back 5? Both the goals, first 2 goals, came from that side. So the first one's crossed and Angelino's there, and again he's diving in, sliding in, what he does when he's out of position to get him out of shit. Didn't work. Second one, again, the switch has gone through, and then he's crossed it because his distance is from him. As a fullback, your biggest thing is always your distance between yourself and your centre half, and then your opposite winger is making sure you're right, your body shape's right, where you're looking either side. It was just so wrong, you know what I mean? And Angelino's not quick, but his starting positions were really good, and Wan-Bissaka's body shape was horrendous. And marry them 2 together, and it's all going to end up in one thing. Do you know what I mean? And it ended up with him being there. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think Wan-Bissaka, he's a victim of Solskjaer's coaching, Solskjaer's tactics, and a combination of his own inability to adapt. Because like you said, the distances that you have as a right back to a wing back. Like you said, there's no way he should be tucking around that far, like you say, over covering and then having to make that last ditch tackle. But I don't think there can't be a player in world football that does more last ditch tackles than Wan-Bissaka. And the reason why the last ditch is because he's often out of position. And I've said to you before, Rio Ferdinand's a perfect example of a defender that was rarely out of position. John Terry, rarely out of position. The only time that you would see them on their ass is effectively when they're out of position, when they're thought, oh, fuck, this is the last ditch. But Wan-Bissaka seems to love a tackle, and often I hear Wan-Bissaka's one of the best. He's one of the best defensive players going. And I've often, I think in one of the other podcasts I mentioned that, I thought he was maybe kind of underrated, but I'm slowly coming to the conclusion that, although he is a strong defender, he's a great man marker. If it's anything other than man marking, he's often found out.
Yeah. No, you absolutely nailed it there. I mean, the bit about diving in, you're always out of position, it's right. The only reason I was feeling you can dive in is if you're covering for another defender. You know, if someone's beating, and then
Yeah.
you've got to, then naturally you're going to be out. You know, you can sort of
hold
cover
out
balance.
position,
You know, your positioning can be sort of thing, so you can cover that side and watch your own. But sometimes, you know what I mean, if the guy beats him, and you're naturally going to have to sort of do a bit of a last ditch tackle, and that's different. But he does it so often, and there's obviously, you know, technical deficiencies within his performance, and it's the reason why he's not really close to England at the moment. You know, and I do feel he's regressed from when he was at Palace. And he just, you know, he's a winger to me, a converted winger, and that's what he is. But yeah, no, I thought Leipzig were good, and I thought that, you know, the first goal wasn't a penalty, and then the second one, and it just gives them hope. The game turns, and they've obviously done enough to qualify.
Before we move on to the remaining teams, how do you think United will fare in the Europa League? Because obviously there's quite a few decent teams that have dropped down, and they've actually been stated as the favourites. I think
favourites. I'd be laying them all day. I won't be backing them if they're favourites. I just think. I mean, the Mourinho made a really good point. Would be that, and he said, you can't have third place Champions League teams dropping down to Europa League, because it devalues the competition. Do you know what I mean? And it's not, and I don't see. I mean, how Man United are favourites, I've got no idea. If Man United played Spurs, I mean, I'd be backing Spurs. Do you know what I mean? So just look in your own country before you look the rest of Europe. You know what I mean? The one good thing, I think most Europa League teams are glad that Sevilla have qualified, so they're not fucking terrible. They seem to win it every year, don't they? But no, I don't think they're favourites. I mean, they can win it because it's knockout, and you know what I mean, and anything can happen. But I just think in terms of the teams that are there, they're not the best team in England.
Yeah, I just think when it comes down to finer details, when it comes, you know, up against a quality coach versus Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that's where it's going to come apart from them, because they can't rely on the individual brilliance of Bruno Fernandes or perhaps a Pogba when he comes on, if Pogba's actually going to be there. So, yeah, if it comes down to actually two quality sides going head to head, then I think Solskjaer will suffer.
Just one final point before we move on Man United. You mentioned Pogba. I'm glad you have. We've obviously nailed him and said, you know, he's not fit for Man United. I agree, but I feel at the moment he's been made a bit of a scapegoat for United's performances and what's happening. And that's got fuck all to do with him. You can say, 100%. You know, he's a bit of a bad apple, you know, and he is, but the performances that Man United are putting out and the teams that Solskjaer's picking and the formations he's picking, it's got fuck all to do with Pogba. Pogba's coming on when you're 2 or 3 down, and he's having to get you out of shit. Do you know what I mean? If you're losing, he always looks to him. And I just think, I think that's giving him a bit of an easy ride, and that Solskjaer a bit of an easier ride, and it also has taken away the attention from the rest of the players. Because
100%. Sorry.
So yeah, but even with that, I said this, and I said it about Arsenal as well when Solskjaer took us. They've got a lot of average players, and you can get away with 1 or 2 in a team of 11, but not the amount they've got. They've probably got 3 or 4 average players that are just they're going to hold them back, and then on top of that you've got an average manager as well. Then combinations are not going to work. So I just think Pogba, for all his shit that him and his agent are pulling off on social media, I think he's been made a bit of a scapegoat.
Yeah, the timing of it, like the announcement was like ridiculous. You know, obviously, we know as players, shit happens off the field. You generally, you're not really bothered. You get on with your game as players. It kind of helped, but like you say, it's a smoke screen. It's an absolute smoke screen, and Solskjaer's loving that, because he's just like, right, let's focus on this situation as opposed to why I am so inept at my job. And like I say, as soon as Pogba goes, it'll be somebody else's fault, and then all is out the way.
No, yeah, absolutely right. We're just going to move on to some of the teams that are left and how we see the Champions League progressing, who we think is going to win it, and who we think's the top 4. I mean, obviously the semi-finalists are hard depending on the draw, because it might be impossible for. But we just sort of see. We'll have a look and we'll just sort of see who we think's going to win it, and who we think will get to the sort of later stages. I'm just going to go through the teams for those of you that don't know or don't have the teams in front of you like us. So obviously you've got Bayern, Chelsea, Dortmund, Juve, Liverpool, Man City, PSG, Real, they're the seeded team, so they're all the group winners. Generally, in previous years, you'd say, oh, you want to be a group winner because you get an easier draw, which, it's probably right again, but there are some fucking tough teams in that second place. So, Barca, Atletico Madrid, Atlanta, Leipzig, and then and Sevilla, and then you've probably got the three weaker teams of Porto, Mönchengladbach, and Lazio. I think Bayern are favourites. How do you see it? Who do you fancy for to qualify? Bayern. Right, okay.
Bayern.
That was short and sweet.
Bayern. No, just looking at the seeded teams, it's ridiculously strong. Obviously they've won the group, but usually you have a couple here and there where you wouldn't expect to be there. But the seeded teams are ridiculous. Maybe you trade Barcelona with
Juve.
Because
that was the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, but ridiculously strong. I mean, Atalanta. I wouldn't like to play them again as a Liverpool fan. Ilicic, top draw player.
They got Gomez as well, and the way they play, they just attack. You know what I mean? And you don't want to play them. You're right, you don't, because they can literally beat anyone.
Yeah, you just don't know what you're going to get from them. And Atletico Madrid, you always know what they're going to get with them. Yeah. They're flying in La Liga, absolutely flying. That's maybe the one thing that could hinder them ever so slightly as we go later into it, because ultimately they will want to win the Champions League, but I think it's more realistic that with the start that they have, that they're going to win the La Liga, although it looks very open over there. And then Barcelona. To be honest, you would never normally say this, but speaking as a Liverpool fan, if I got Barcelona, I wouldn't be too bothered, because recently they're just not quite there. And if Messi's not on it, even Messi was on it against Juventus. Watched quite a bit of that game, and he was pulling the strings, but the rest of his team is just not on a level. Well, no one is on a level, but they're just not even remotely close to the level that is required. Juventus can't beat them at ease, and I even forgot that Barcelona were at home. That's how much better Juventus were.
It's a funny one that I don't think Juve have been. I think Pirlo's obviously taken over as Juve, and I don't think they've been great. So and I think Barca and Juve both probably about. I mean, Barca obviously need Koeman's got his job's on the line at the moment. They're doing fucking horrendous, but I think I'm surprised with that 3-0, because I did think that was the difference between both sides. I don't see them. I mean, in terms of sort of winning the whole thing, I think like you. I think Bayern and I think Liverpool are going to be closest as well. The only thing, I mean, Liverpool, we're not talking about Liverpool yet, but people spoke about the injuries and how much that will affect them. But I think they've been absolutely fine. The back. I mean, they were obviously did enough before, and they just needed one win from the last sort of 3 games, and they got that. Ajax, but it was still a lot of injuries. So they've qualified, and you're sort of hoping when you get to the knockout stages, some of them get back. It's unlikely Van Dijk or Gomez are going to get back, but as long as Fabinho and Matip don't get injured, I think they'll be all right. I think Bayern, Liverpool, and then the rest of the teams, I just don't see them. I don't think Real Madrid are strong enough. But it's Real Madrid, because you never know with them, do you? I don't think PSG are a Champions League winning team. I think Man City, I don't know how they end up being second or third favourites every year, because they've never fucking been in a final. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you talk about Guardiola, so they've just never been, and for well, Man City, they'll end up getting to a quarters of the semis, and Guardiola will think is like the second coming, and he'll try a different formation that no one's seen for the rest of the year, and it'll just go tits up.
I think Liverpool. For me, it's purely dependent upon obviously the right players being fit, at the right times. If you can get Thiago, Matip, and Fabinho in the same team with the front three, Trent, Robbo, the core players that are actually available, not in long-term injuries. When it comes to the likes of the semi-finals and final, if we get there against the likes of Bayern Munich, that's what we'll do well. I think we'd be up there as maybe the second favourites if those key players are available. Yeah. If the likes of Van Dijk are available and Gomez, then that becomes a different ballgame. We probably become favourites in my eyes. But like you say, I expect Man City to. I do expect I think this could be, and but I always say it could be Manchester City's year. Chelsea as well. The quality that they have. This is not I don't think they'll win the league, because I don't think consistently over 38 games that they're going to come out on top over Liverpool and Man City. However, with just a 2-leg tie, I think Chelsea could potentially do it. What are your thoughts on Chelsea winning it?
Like you, I mean, you do find when you get to the sort of business end of Champions League, of European tournaments, the quarters, semis, the managers are at a higher level. Lampard's a new manager. I mean, I think he's doing great, and I like the way that he's actually set up. So Chelsea have got identity. They're a forward, front foot, expansive playing football team. So the way he wants to play. Now, when it gets to the final details and it gets tighter and it becomes more of a tactical game, I don't know where they're going to end up. And I still feel defensively they've got weaknesses. I mean, Thiago Silva's obviously brilliant. Kurt Zuma's, there's firstly, if I'm a team playing against them, I'd just be looking to isolate him. It's like Kurt Zuma and Reece James both. I mean, Kurt Zuma's, I don't think he's great. Reece James is inexperienced. What's the defensive a bit? I mean, he's great delivering a ball in the final third. You'll just, that's just me looking at Chelsea. I've not watched many full games of them. So you just identify that area straight away. Who does he play as a holding midfield? If he plays Jorginho, that's another place where you can sort of really look to press and create opportunities for yourself. And it's like Kante. I think Kante, you need to get him back in that holding midfield. And how are we going to play? If it's just Kante and then he's got Mason Mount and Havertz either side, now both of them are. Do you know what I mean? So there's little positions there you can isolate in those half spaces. So I just think it's they're looking great and they're doing well. But I just think no. I don't see them winning it. I mean, they can't. And literally anyone can't win it. They can make a run just because of the current situation, the pandemic, and everything's just a bit out there. And a squash season. If
you were gonna name your top three, let's starting with ones that are likeliest to win it to least likely to win it. Top three, who's going to win it?
I'd go Liverpool, Bayern, and I just think Real Madrid, even though I've said no, I just think there's something about that club. Do you know what I mean?
Just forget everything else.
I mean, that's probably just my heart going because I'm a huge Zidane fan. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to put Man City. I mean, the common sense one would be Man City, but then there's also like Juve as well, and I think Juve could be. It depends. I mean, Pirlo will have a bit longer, so I mean, it's Liverpool, Bayern, and then it's either sort of Juve. I mean, then you've got Juve, Real, Man City. I'd probably put them three in the same bracket as.
Well, I'm going to go controversial. Bayern. That's outright winners. Man City, Liverpool. Very controversial.
No, it's not. It's your opinion. It's how you see it. I just, last season, if we didn't have Adrian in goal, I think we could have won it. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like we absolutely smashed Atletico. So we know what we're going to get, and it's, do you remember the Adrian moment? I just looked back there and I thought, I can't believe that's just fucking happened. It's just, if only we had Keller available then.
Honestly, every time, I was looking at Adrian that game, and it was just like every shot was going against him. It's just like, it's like when your little brother's controlling FIFA and you just dive and pass the ball all the time. Oh God, it was so bad. It was probably the worst performance I've seen since excluding Aston Villa from a keeper, and again that was Adrian. So
brilliant. Right, okay, so that wraps up today. We've gone through obviously biggest disappointments and who we think we're going to win. So that wraps up this week's podcast. Until next week, guys. See you later.
See you later.